Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. It's a very special day. I don't mostly invite three people on my show, but today I have the pleasure of welcoming three people on my show for a very specific reason, for a very specific purpose. And the reason and purpose is related to three very important topics in our life these days. And that's why I have these three gentlemen about whom I will mention to you very shortly. One of them is news travels at the speed of lightning. Gone are the days when news traveled through horsebacks, camelbacks, pigeons, and what have you. Today, news travels at a speed that anything you wanted to know, you can just find out. So today we have not known that, today we know now that Wuhan virus is something that is man-made. It appears so. We can't say with conclusive evidence. But in the number of variations and permutations that have happened to this particular virus, it has taken hundreds of thousands of lives in the US itself, in India, our home country. And it doesn't seem to be abating. I have greatest of pleasure in welcoming Dr. Rakesh Sharma, who 2 years ago on this very show, we've talked about it, and he said a few things that's on record. He said that time that this particular whole thing is being mismanaged. Information is not coming out correct. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, doctor, that you had opined and I had agreed, and I thought that was my opinion too, that this didn't look like a natural disaster. Let's put it that way. The second topic relates to European-American relationship and what's happening in Ukraine. Let's not take that lightly, whether it's posturing or a hard bargain. It is very important scenario happening on the world platform. Let's not forget, Europe is a continent that has been the center of two world wars. And somehow Europe has a penchant for converting all its local issues as a global scenario. For that particular issue and issues related thereto, I have greatest of pleasure in welcoming Dr. Adityanjee. He's not only a psychiatrist, he is also a founder of Council of Strategic Association, and he does a lot of work on human rights issues, International Council for Human Rights. Dr. Adityanjee, you're welcome. And he's a strategic thinker and a global thinker. His own shows, he invites a galaxy of think tank people who give valuable insights on this. And I have had the greatest of pleasure in participating in his show on a specific reference, a couple of them, but this Katsa thing was a very important one. Third and finally, my dear friend, Dr. Krishna Bhatta. The world is full of stress. If there was ever any time that we are configuring the stress and need for relaxation, that's Dr. Krishna Bhatta for you. And I have greatest of pleasure in also sharing with all of you here today that he has adopted me as a co-founder of the app called Relax app. You can see that picture right behind him. Dr. Krishna Bhatta, welcome to the show. And Dr. Bhatta and I are meditators for not 1 or 2 years, but a couple of decades. And therefore, we did a show, a 7-series show on a specific channel. And I'm very happy to share that the young people in America and all over the world paid so much attention that our average viewership of our shows in the 7 shows exceeded anything between 25 to 30,000 people. And there were shows that were viewed by 50,000 plus. This is a great pleasure to have this session. And Dr. Sharma, I'm going to begin with you. Because 2 years ago when pandemic was declared, since then we know what has happened in the world of coronavirus. Your thoughts as on date, where does it seem to be heading out to? The news reports about Dr. Fauci, misleading. and the media misleading the world is all over. I want you to come back with your thought on it. What do people must expect and how do the people deal with it? Because even after booster shots and double vaccines, people are getting the Omicron.
Okay, thank you, Vibhuti Ji. And good to be with the other panelists. Now, as far as COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 is concerned, it's very unfortunate that it came at a time when global economy was taking off. It has brought everyone down. And unfortunately, more than 5 million people worldwide have died and close to 900,000 in US alone. In fact, the USA has the largest number of deaths or maximum number of deaths of any country. And we don't say that proudly because we all live here. Did something go wrong? Absolutely. First of all, a country like United States that's not only rich, but technologically advanced, we just didn't know how to handle a COVID-19 infection. Otherwise, why should 900,000 people die? That's number one. So that just shows that politicians or leaders or someone like Dr. Fauci, who was made in charge, must have made so many mistakes that a common man is paying for it. Is SARS-CoV-2 a man-made? Looks like. You and me cannot bring the proof, but that's what we all know in our hearts, that it is not a natural virus. That's number one. Number two, was China to be blamed for it? Yes, 100%, absolutely not. Initially, they didn't share the information, but once we found it out in January 2020, I mean, what did we do? In 2020, number of people who died in US, in 2021, actually more people died from COVID-19. So now you cannot keep on blaming China for withholding information. So in 2021, there was no reason for so many Americans to die. So where does the problem exist? Number one, government that has no clue how to fight a pandemic. And number two, people who were made in charge, whether we call it President Trump or Dr. Fauci, made lots of mistakes. And I'm not saying that President Biden did not. And next thing I would say that education, public is still very confused. A lot of people think this virus is just some kind of a hoax. I want them to come to my ICU where people are on the ventilators or they cannot breathe with maximum oxygen, just to see for a minute that this is not some kind of hoax, this is real. And all the other factors that contributed to so many deaths, I would say from politicians to businessmen to people who were in charge, whether director of CDC or person like Dr. Fauci, should take the biggest blame, because we couldn't even tell Americans that vaccine is a good thing. It's a shame that only 63 or 64% Americans are vaccinated. And what price are we paying? I tell all my patients who are adults that if all the adults in USA had taken the vaccine, we did not have to subject children under the age of 12 to take vaccination. I have 2 grandchildren. If they are taking vaccination, it's not because children will get severe disease. It's because adults have refused to take vaccination. So we are punishing children. Worldwide, lots of other countries did very well. Like if you go to Africa, looks like they are not affected too much. Why? Because this is a disease that caused disaster in obese people, in diabetic people, and people who were near diabetes. All these factors are seen in well-to-do countries, not in poor countries. So Africans did very well. This is a disease of rich people or people who are overweight. And that's my 2 cents of information.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma, for keeping the tab on that, the reasons for which this particular virus has been such a disaster. The other element which bothers me, and Dr. Adityanjee, you can comment on that, that there was a research done by Nicholas Wade. And that was the first time I heard about the concept of human mice, that this virus was tested on human mice. Does this make it a weapon? Or is that the reason why, it can be sent across in various other forms?
I think I will take from where Dr. Sharma has said. I would not call it COVID-19 disease, and I would not call it, COVID SARS-2 virus, SARS-CoV-2 virus. I will stick to the popular epithet, Wuhan, China virus. There's a tradition that the region where viruses originated from, you name on that, you have Ebola virus, you have Zika virus, they have geographical designation. Japanese B encephalitis, Spanish flu. Why make an exception in this case and make it non-geographical? It is Wuhan, China virus. It originated from there. The mistakes have been done, not just by last two administrations in US, but successive administrations from 2000 onwards. In 2002, 2003, there was an outbreak of SARS in China, and predictably, Chinese withheld the information. That was an epidemic, not a pandemic, died soon. Chinese did not actually give information. So if Chinese track record is to be taken, they never give complete information. So to expect that they will give that kind of information was failure of judgment and failure of region by politicians or by epidemiologists or virologists. In this whole saga, we have to remember that US and China were collaborating on virological studies. In Wuhan Institute of Virology, a number of research projects had been funded by NIH, including studies on gain of function studies, and even when funding was done by NIH to a consortium, a research consortium led by Peter Daszak, that money also went back to Wuhan Institute of Virology. The suggestion that the virus jumped from bat to an intermediate host, mainly pangolins, and from pangolins came to human beings, was ludicrous. Wuhan is a city of 12 million people. There are no caves where bats reside in Wuhan. The nearest pangolins from Wuhan are, I think, 1,200 miles away. So ludicrous explanations were given. A lot of people are guilty of this, including Dr. Fauci, Peter Daszak, Xi Jinping, and Dr. Tedros, which we have not referred to. Dr. Tedros is China-supported candidate.
Right.
Became Director General of WHO in 2017. And after so much of mismanagement, after making false statements that we could not find evidence of human-to-human transmission in the beginning of this pandemic, Dr. Tedros gets a second term of WHO. I think these are very serious points. I think Dr. Fauci misled the whole world by saying that they did not fund gain-of-function studies when they did. China basically made the best of the money that was coming. And what has they created? A Frankenstein's monster, or what I would say is Bhasmasur. They conducted biological warfare. That is the overall conclusion of anyone who looks at it from a historical, from a strategic point of view, that is what was going on.
Thank you very much for such a frank and robust statement that you have made. And I want to thank you for that. Dr. Bhatt.
And I'll make one more statement.
Okay, go ahead.
The country which lost largest number of people still remains People's Republic of China. More than 2 million people died there, although their official figure is 4,500. But in the initial stages of this pandemic, the number of cell phone subscribers to China Telecom fell down by millions. Tell me what's the reason, if not that.
That's a very fascinating revelation that you have made, that we always look at the concurrent data, or data, what is happening where. So if 2 million people or millions of people have just suddenly lost their phone connections, you know that they were not taking it for a travel in the space. Dr. Bhatt, it is a very serious scenario right now. It's a very serious scenario because it has created significant amount of uncertainty in the minds of people. And I can vouch for it, including myself, that whether we have a penchant for keeping a smiling face, everybody is going through a significant amount of uncertainty in their lives. Jobs are gone. Supply chain is in a mess. Price rise has gone up because of the mandate requirement for the vaccine. So suddenly, the news on Thursday was that in Canada, there is a 44-mile-long truckers' strike against mandate of vaccine. We know what has happened in the US. What is the problem with the vaccination? Why is it creating so much uncertainty and doubt in the minds of people to push them into a Shakespearean dilemma, to be or not to be, or to get it or not to get it?
That's $1 million question. As Dr. Sharma said, everybody should be vaccinated. And then there is this school which doesn't want to be vaccinated. And now more and more reports are coming out, whether vaccinated or not vaccinated, you can still get COVID. So there is a lot of confusion. There is a lot of stories out there. But one thing is certain, that this Wuhan virus has caused a havoc in the mental health arena. JAMA reported, and I also shared with you before, New York Times reported about a survey of more than 1,300 mental health providers. And Dr. Adityanjee, can probably put more light on this. But the findings are that pre-COVID and post-COVID, the anxiety and depression scenes, especially in the younger population, has doubled. The problems haven't changed, but the same problems seem to have been highlighted because everybody has energy drain there. And I live in Maine, where people get seasonal affective disorder anyway in winter. On top of that, isolation, it's not a good scenario. Plus all this, to take the vaccine or not to take the vaccine, I have to travel, then I have to have pre-test, post-test. So things just have piled upon all of us. And I would like to hear from Adityanjee, what the mental health implication he has come across in his practice.
I think that's a very, very important issue that you're bringing forth. And I'm not going to refer to epidemiological research or surveys. I can tell you from my own sort of practical clinical experience, because I am in private practice in psychiatry, and I see patients day in and day out. So the distress is real. In any time of stress, the severity of whatever disease one is suffering from, that tends to increase. But this is a very particular, very frightening situation for the population, whether they are young or old. I did mention about young people. I see senior citizens also, and effects are equally debilitating. There's a lot of fear. Families were sort of, divided, especially over the holiday seasons. Parents didn't want their children to come home. Why? Because if children are anti-vaxxers and parents are elderly and have multiple risk factors, they didn't want to sacrifice their life just for the love of their children. I have families where parents have laid down the line that you can come in the driveway, say hello to us from a distance. We are not going to come near you because you are refusing to vaccinate. So not only it has mental health implications, it has implications on the structure of the family dynamics. It's causing a lot of chaos. There's a lot of emotional burden, and it doesn't look like with changes in mutation rates and new variants coming up that we are going to have a SARS-CoV-2 free era. The virus is going to stay. We'll have to now learn to live with the virus. But despite the presence of all these conspiracy theories and this and that, from a medical perspective, I wish more people in this country took the vaccination. I wish. Only 62%. Vaccine is free. People are willing to die for their false or overvalued political ideas, and they're willing to die and not even willing to take the vaccine when they have been hospitalized or gone to ICU. I don't know what kind of principle is this.
Well, that's again $1 million question because people have huge amount of doubts. So, switching to another topic, and I will again start with you, Adityanjee, because you are a geopolitical person as well. And then I will switch over to Sharma ji and Krishna ji on that very issue alone, because I want to have the specialist common sense and the, as an aware citizen, where do we stand with reference to this? What do you think, in a very short message? Do you think Ukraine is just a power tussle? Do you think there is a war happening, or the weapons are being assembled? Posturing is being done. Germany is being blamed. USA is suddenly more concerned about Ukraine's border than it is concerned about its own. What's going on there? What kind of a geopolitical play is here that this country that ran out of Afghanistan is again put 10,000 soldiers on alert, on readiness to go and fight a war another 10,000 miles away? What's going on there?
So we historically talked about great game being played in Afghanistan. This is the great game being played in the heart of Europe. And there's nothing new in it. I think everything you have to evaluate in the context of historical information. And, it is a game of chicken between United States and Russia. It depends who blinks first. Everyone is testing each other's power, level of tolerance, level of endurance. And it's not going to, stop in one day's time because there's nothing recent about it. You had a lot of events that happened in 2014, starting with a US-inspired coup against a duly elected president of Ukraine, Yanukovych. A so-called mob was asked to come on street called Maidan Revolution, and a duly elected president was deposed. I mean, the way to depose in a democracy is you wait till next election and vote the person out. But that president was, stripped of the power and had to flee to Russia. Now that angered Russia at that point in time, and they occupied the Crimean Peninsula and annexed it. Now, I'm not going to take a pro-Russian point of view, but history tells you that Crimean Peninsula was part of Russia till 1954, when the USSR, out of brotherlyhood with Ukraine and Russia, decided to just gift it to Ukraine, just to keep them happy. So, if you sort of, when you are having this geopolitical power game going on, and if United States engineers a coup in Ukraine and deposes a duly elected president and arranges for transfer of power to an unelected interim president, what did Putin do? Putin annexed Crimea. He's showing his might there. What did he do afterwards? You had kind of Republic of Donbass, a de facto partition between Eastern Ukraine and Western Ukraine. So those things are continuing. I think you have to realize that in this struggle, in this geopolitical game, the stronger hand is with Putin. Putin has been in power since 1999. He has seen 5 US presidents. At heart, he's a Russian hyper-nationalist. And his belief system is that breakdown of USSR was unfortunate for Russia or Soviet Union. And he wants to resurrect Soviet Union in a different form. So he's going to extend the sphere of influence of Russia wherever he can. This happened in Southeast Asia in 2008 when Georgian president during the Beijing Olympics sent, Georgian forces to Southeast Asia. And that immediately gave Russia an opportunity to send Russian soldiers into Southeast Asia, although Beijing Olympics were going on. So this is an ongoing saga. I think what is going to happen is salami slicing of Ukraine. Ukraine is a buffer state between Russia and the Western Europe / NATO alliance. And Russia has legitimate security concerns. Now, in this situation, when United States is weak, Putin is going to take all the advantage, just like Bill Clinton took all the advantage, expanded the NATO eastward during 90s, deposed all the allies of Russia in whether it was Serbia or wherever. You had famous Madlin's War in Kosovo. New country was created. So if there's a NATO expansionism, what do you think Russia will do?
That's a very valid question. That's a very
Russian hyper-nationalistic point of view, they are waiting for opportunity. And they find that United States has successively weaker administrations, over last 10 or 15 years. So Russia is waiting for opportunity when it can reassert its former glory of Soviet Union. And I think it will be...
I wanted to bring about another topic related to that. And Sharma ji, we are looking at the muscle man, what we call the Russian hyper-nationalist ex-Soviet guy, testing democracies in the West and America. Do you think democracy itself is on trial for all the reasons that wokeism that is happening in America? And this is something that struck me, that the people who are taking full advantage or exploiting democracies are the Islamists, the communists, the ultra-liberals. They are using every tool, every virtue, every freedom in democracies to undermine democracies. Because today, on Thursday, Thursday, the Defense Secretary of the United States ordered the military to review so that no unnecessary civilian killings happen. War has consequences, collateral damage. Where are we heading out in terms of democratic forms? And the countries that are taking advantage of us are China, the Islamic world, the Marxist world, the Leninist world, and the ultra-liberal media. Everybody is taking advantage of democracy, except the people who are living there, they are suffering. Your take on that? Is democracy destroying itself, or democracy itself is on trial?
Yeah, first I want to say a couple of things about NATO, Ukraine, and Russia.
Yeah, I wanted to discuss a lot of issues, so keep
Sure.
it crisp and sharp. That's
Yeah.
it.
So the whole idea that NATO was created was for the security of other nations against Soviet Union in 1949. Soviet Union has already broken into pieces. So what is NATO worried about? I am clueless. Number two, during Cold War, I can understand NATO wanted to expand, but post-Cold War, there is no reason for NATO to expand. In fact, NATO has expanded twice its membership post-Cold War. Soviet Union is gone and NATO has become twice bigger. Makes no sense. Putin has been watching. I'm not pro-Russia, but here, I think Putin has finally said, I'm going to draw a red line, which is Ukraine. NATO has taken over all the ex-Soviet Union allies, but he doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO. For a simple reason, if we remember during JFK's time, when Khrushchev sent missiles to Cuba,
Yes.
we were ready to fight with Russia. And now it's the same situation. We are trying to bring Ukraine to NATO, and Russia says, hey, these guys are next door to me. You cannot take Ukraine into your arms, and few years later, you might put some missiles in Ukraine. So Putin is very much right this time, and NATO countries should really back down. And as far as Soviet Union glory is concerned, those days are gone. Putin or anybody else in future cannot do anything now. America has played very nice game after a Cold War finished. They grabbed all the countries, as we remember. Nobody mentioned the word called Warsaw Pact. If you remember, Warsaw Pact was a word which has disappeared suddenly from the media. All of a sudden, all the Warsaw Pact countries have joined NATO, and Russia is standing alone. So I think they are very angry that don't take my neighbor, and they're kind of justified. I don't think they want to annex the Ukraine, but if you come and take my neighbor and make him my enemy, I will be shocked too.
Vibhuti, I just have to make this intervention. It's very interesting.
Make the intervention, make it quick, because I want to...
I'll make just 2 points.
Yes, please.
From a geopolitical point of view, if Putin were not to do what he is doing, history will proclaim him as Jawaharlal Nehru of Russia, who kept eyes closed, just like China occupied Tibet. That was the buffer state. And India did not do anything. India is facing the consequences. I told you already, Putin is a hyper-nationalistic Russian. So he is doing the right thing for his country, whether we agree with or not, whether we defy his means or whatever. The second issue about democracies is concerned. Ukraine itself is not a proper democracy. It reeks of corruption and all. But I want to bring your notice to another analogy. Attempts have been made to undo India's democracy by bringing protesters on the street by vested interests with international backing. It happened in Shaheen Bagh. It happened during farmers' agitation. And this is exactly what was done to Ukrainian president who was elected, Viktor Yanukovych. So, democracies sometimes try to undermine themselves and try to undermine other democracies. And this has been seen, both in that parallel of February 2014 Ukraine, and what has happened in India post-2019 elections. Desperate attempts have been made by international forces trying to bring few thousand protesters on the street and trying to unravel Indian government.
Thank you very much for that part of this. Krishna ji, this is exactly the point which I'm coming back to you with. Our democracies undermining themselves in the name of, and the varieties of fringe factors who are becoming main players, whether it's Black Lives Matter here, whether it's a Shine Bagh there, whether it's farmers there, or whether it is some movement out here. Are democracies undermining themselves? That it's important because a few weeks ago, I saw a survey in India, which India Today or one of the newspapers had done it, where 50% plus people are saying that we are tired of democracy. The lawlessness and rule of law, the way it is being flouted, we need a strong hand. It is in that context that I want to talk about this matters. Your thoughts on this matter?
Well, there are two two thoughts on this one. One is, of course, what Adityanjee says. Democracy is not undermining itself. Other forces, international forces, somehow in their dominance are undermining those. So like the Khalistan movement or the farmers movement, Shaheen Bagh, some vested interest people are trying to undermine that. And the second
and just to support what you are saying, I just want to interject here. George Soros declared at World Economic Forum that I'm committing $1 billion to destabilize Narendra Modi. Nobody has taken cognizance of that.
And $1 billion goes a long way.
Yeah, it does.
Of course, India is trying to restrict that by curtailing FCRA, and they're trying to do it a legal way. Not like, okay, Punjab did this, so let's put Rashtrapati Sashan in Punjab. That would have been probably a wrong step. So yes, democracy is trying to survive in a democratic means, but other people are undermining those by undemocratic means. So that's number one. And number two is there was a time, at least in India, where अच्छे लोगों को politics में नहीं जाना है. And that kind of, started with Vinoba Bhave, Gandhi ji, the Sarvodaya leader. The good people, then what happens? The bad people are replaced by more bad people. It's like it went to a cycle where we had Gundaraj. And then comes, Narendra Modi ji in Gujarat. And then now Yogi ji in UP, Hemanta Viswas in Orissa. So things can be done. I mean, I can't believe, Vibhuti ji, there is so much money in one term that they could build 100,000 houses, lakho ghar, and give it away. That money was going in the pockets of some people. So yes, if you think that way, if you are pocketing the money, you are undermining democracy. But if you have a, sushashan, then probably it can shine.
Jha Saab, can I say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, since you talked about the UP part, I gave a slogan to somebody to say, उत्तर प्रदेश को उल्टा प्रदेश नहीं बनाना है, योगी लाना है, भोगी को नहीं लाना है, और उत्तर प्रदेश को जन्नत बनाना है, जहन्नुम नहीं. So yes, Sharma ji, go ahead. What you want to say?
See, what United States and its policymakers do not realize is US was engaged in Afghanistan for 20 years. So who benefited? China. And now, when the focus should be on China about COVID-19 issue, what's happening? USA is going to be engaged with Ukraine and anti-Russia. So who's going to benefit? China again. All the attention is being diverted from China into Ukraine and Russia. So US policymakers have been wrong multiple times. They may not realize, but China is the beneficiary.
Actually, from a strategic point of view, you need to do your threat analysis and do your simulations, threat simulations, and threat perceptions. At this point in time, the rising hegemon is China. And unfortunately, the US policy establishment, pretty much in both the major political parties, still has that Cold War mindset. And I would say that the State Department and the Democratic Party, which is controlling the administration at this point in time, is somehow still living in the past of anti-Russia or anti-Soviet Union kind of thing. Putin is not a communist. He's a hyper-nationalist. He's an authoritarian person who will do anything to keep himself in power and bring Russia back to glory of the fatherland. I think the problem lies here that if you are already weak and you stretch your resources, you will not be able to contain the rising hegemon. So China is definitely going to benefit, and in all this confusion, Xi Jinping will take over Taiwan. And US is not prepared at this point in time to intervene.
That's right. That's the biggest threat that is happening, because the US is getting stretched between Russia and China, Russia and Ukraine, China and Taiwan, Hong Kong, Tibet, whatever else is there. Now, I want to switch gears completely here. And that's a very important one, a very important issue, which involves all of us.
Vibhuti, can I just make one point before you switch?
Okay.
Like Rajesh Sharma says, China does it in such a sneaky way, or I don't know if it is sneaky, but it's so obvious. You go to Caribbean, the cricket stadium is built by China. I mean, America is next door to Caribbean. They don't do much, but China is doing their, social structure and all those things, penetrating in those areas. It's going in Africa and doing those things, while we are focusing on, as I said, Putin or some other issue where we spend money. We left millions of equipment and money in Afghanistan and walked away, but not do something constructive in areas where we can have influence.
The story goes around that in Afghanistan, Afghan people are loving India because what India did was a remarkable thing. They did not give a loan. India built and gave it to them, whether it was a dam, whether it's a parliament house or things like that. As a result of which, if you are going to destroy it, you are not destroying Indian property, you are destroying your own. So Afghans have an ownership of a gift. That's important. But I wanted to switch to a very important topic, which involves all of us here. Somewhere along the line, we noticed that last year we had dismantling Hinduphobia conference, dismantling, attacking India. There were a whole lot of attacks made on India, including the bill that was Islamophobia bill. And we have had several discussions on that. Now we have the scenario that I notice as a journalist, as an aware person, I try to see what's happening. And you see a continuous trend of threads operating that Hindus, India is always getting targeted. Even a subject matter like caste, the California State University has adopted that caste is a protected category. Satya Nadella and dozens of Indians who are CEOs, nobody has said a word. We don't seem to have a voice. There was a Malaysian woman who was making the case for caste protection in California State University when my friend, Professor Sinha, rose up and challenged her that what is your credential to talk about the caste system in India? And that's it. It has been passed, overriding, bypassing completely the points of view of Indians who were the faculty members. What is tragic is that many Indians are totally apathetic about it. Share your thoughts on this. I leave this open to all three of you, 2 minutes each. Where do we go from here? Are we getting undermined? The most successful migrant community, that is not a law and order problem. That's professional on the highest income bracket. We take care of ourselves. We don't interfere in anybody's life. We are the ideal immigrant community in the world anywhere. We are not a law and order problem, yet we are targeted. What about us, Bob, as the question goes about? What is wrong with us? Why are we the target? I start with you, Krishnaji. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. I think, Vibhuti, there may be multiple reasons, but one,
Of course, there will be. Of
Yeah.
course, there will be multiple.
One, I think, plays the most important part, I think, is in Hinduism or as a Sanatanist, we are not protective. We don't, I mean, we're not kind of, in a house that we are protecting from, invasion. We welcome people as guests. Atithi,
Devo Bhava.
Devo Bhava.
Devo Bhava. And you go to anybody, I mean, I've been in England, I've been here, I have been in Saudi Arabia. They're so protective. I mean, Saudi Arabia, you cannot take a statue, Buddha Kaya, Kali Ji ki, you cannot take it. They will take it at the airport. It's like here, the moment you go and try to sell, a book that has got some Hindu connotation or proselytizing, suddenly they become protective and, the door closes. Saudi Arabia, of course, there's no question. England also, I mean, it's opened up to Indian food and all that, but when it comes to anything other than that, people are protective. So somehow we never became protective of ourselves. We did not put a shield around us. We kept the whole doors open. And, that helped India, I mean, other people to come to India, Zoroastrians or Parsis or all people, wherever they were victimized, they could find a home in India. And India gave them home. Even, St. Thomas, who came a long way, I mean, historically, he was the first one to come from one of the disciples of Jesus. He was welcome. So that welcoming thing, should we become like a protectionist ourselves? I don't know. But that is not in our blood. I mean, we have to adopt that. We have to have a strategy for that. That's not inbuilt in our genes.
What do you say, Sharma ji?
Well, it only reminds me of one thing. We all know this doha very well. Bura jo dekhne main chala, bura na milya koe. Jo dil khoja apna, mujhse bura na koe. I think this applies to Hindus all over the world. We have a problem. We always find fault with Christians, Muslims, or everybody else. Fault lies with us. We have been taught from very beginning by our parents, by our teachers, not to fight, not to do wrong things. Nobody ever told us, like they teach in Islam, pick up the sword and kill the infidels. Hindus must learn that nobody's going to come and protect you. You have to protect yourself. Unfortunately, we are very educated people. We can make a lot of money, but at the same time, we are the most selfish people. If you look around, have you ever seen some Hindu guy who has tons of money in US donating $50 million for some Hindu cause in US? Do you see Jews or Christians doing that? Absolutely. You will see biggest donors of universities, of churches are Christians and Jews. Soros may be the worst guy on this planet today, but guy has taken a stand, whether it's the wrong stand, but he has spent money. Don't we have Khoslas and others in US who are of Indian origin who have equally that much wealth? Have you ever seen them saying, I'm going to donate $1 billion for Hindu cause or for the cause of India? That's where the problem lies. Nothing else. It's not that we cannot fight. We don't have a leadership. We don't have a good direction. And what do? Every city has 20 Hindu organizations. Everybody wants to be the chief of 100 and 200 people. And if we have 2 or 3 Hindu organizations in USA, we can bring all the politicians to their knees for the right cause, but we don't do that. So I think we need to look inside ourselves and say, where did we go wrong and how can we correct it?
Adityanjee, your take in 2 minutes.
It's a complex issue with multi-determined multifactorial origins.
Whatever you have to say it in 2 minutes.
So that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That there is an alliance of leftist liberals and certain fundamentalist organizations. That is a reality. And that is flush with money. The money is coming from industrialists, money is coming from Middle East. You are having a divide between an cabal of Abrahamic religions of the book that believe in forced conversions by deception, fraud, whatever, against a religion that is more a philosophy, an advanced cognitive philosophy, which is highly individualistic. So those are some of the issues. The other issues, like Dr. Sharma said, I remember in one of the shows, Vibhuti Ji, you and I had discussed this issue. And I had told you that, there is one Monty Ahuja who would give $6 million to $60 million to University Hospital of Cleveland to have naming rights of Monty Ahuja, hospital, medical center. Similarly, there is a Soin family in Dayton, Ohio that gave $25 million to Kettering Medical Center to have Raj and Indu Soin Medical Center. So we don't do for community, we do it for our self-glory. That is definitely an issue. So it has both the aspects. We have to do self-introspection and course correction, but we also have to be aware of the external machinations, how others are conspiring. They are conspiring and they are successful because you are weak. Why you are weak? Because of certain reasons. I think one of the things that Hindus need to do, to be able to say, not only in United States, but everywhere else in the world, what Swami Vivekananda had said, गर्व से कहो कि हम हिंदू हैं. There's nothing to be ashamed.
That's right.
And only you assert when you start asserting your identity, whether that is in civil space, public space, political space. Only when you assert your identity, you will be taken seriously. Otherwise, nobody is going to take you seriously.
So, thank you very much. I mean, Vivekananda's statement, and I very often talk about that, to arise, awaken, and assert is critical for the survival of Hindus the way we are. We are being swept. We are being swept. We are being undermined by others, or our apathy, or our non-involvement, or living in the world of Vasudev Kutumbakam, Atithi Devo Bhava, not realizing that the barbarian at the gate is out to cut our throat. That is the extent of apathy that we have about ourselves. Now, the final thing that I wanted to deal with that is, today the stress levels have gone up remarkably high. You are a psychiatrist, all three of you are doctors, we know that. There are many institutions like Calm, Headspace, Cerebral, boatloads of money are being raised. They are all essential Hindu concepts. And that is the source of inspiration for Krishna ji and myself to start the thing called Relax app. And I'm very happy to share that. It's a process of creation. Krishna ji, I would want you to share that with both the doctors and the viewers in 2 minutes. I mean, people can go and download this app and have a look at it. But how would you say, where does it help people to do that? How do we deal with the stress in this 21st century?
So, I mean, the Relax app, of course, there has been a lot of spread of Eastern wisdom in this country in form of like Deepak Chopra or Maharshi, your TM person.
Yes, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. Yes.
Mahesh Yogi and Prabhupada. They have all created a groundwork. Calm and Headspace created a space where there is acceptance and need. I mean, Calm has been downloaded 40 million downloads and more than 1 million users. And one thing I realized that they didn't have the depth in their applications. It's not a criticism. They have done a great work. They work mainly on mind and body. So mind, body is what they have been working on. We brought in this concept of individual consciousness, which I call it the inner flame. So mind, body, and the inner flame. and soul and spirit is the nucleus. So somehow, if you work on that inner flame, the inner strength develops. And we also have, with all respect to Adityanjee, we divide mind into two portions, minding and mindfulness. So mindfulness is always in the present. It's more like a camera or camcorder, which is once you turn it on, you record, you turn it off, you. So the whole mindfulness game, and of course the minding. So, we have created a universe, a concept that is highly effective in building the inner strength, from where you will become more peaceful, and less. So higher the energy, more peaceful you are, lower the energy, more irritable you are. That's our kind of mantra. And we say that go and do the go-go culture. Don't change that. But if you can spend 5 or 10 minutes a day with yourself, that can transform your life and others as well.
Thank you. You said it very well. And it's wonderful to be part of that entire effort. And you will be glad to know that in our effort to reach out to people, what we decided was to focus on industry-wide usage. And, we have a construction company that has become our equity partner. We have an adult daycare center enterprise with more than 5,000 members who have enrolled us, adopted our program. So I would urge all of you, we are living in a stressful time. Try it. Because at the end of the day, it's all about you, about the individual. Now, at the start of the show, I had said that this is a special show. It is a special show for a very special reason. And that reason is that this potentially is my last show on ITV Gold. And, it has been a wonderful journey for 3+ years, nonstop, every Saturday, to be with you, share my thoughts. And I want to thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart for encouraging me and supporting me and liking my program. Many of you reached out to me personally, those who knew me and those who met me in social functions. They said, you are doing a great job. So thank you very much for saying so. And with this, I wanted to say, all three of you are welcome to my other show on Jaipur Dialogue whenever I do that. But on ITV, this is our last connection. But I want to thank all three of you. I want to thank all three of you for being some of my very good participants. And I owe my personal gratitude to you for that.
So, Mr. Jha, before you say anything else, we all are very thankful. And you and me, we go back 6-7 years. We used to debate on ITV on another show. Yes. And we have been fortunate to be on your show for the last 3 years. And I think your viewers are going to miss you. Every Saturday, they will miss you. Your program perhaps reached out to tons of people and they all enjoyed. We wish you best of luck. And I know that you will be working on Jaipur Dialogues USA. But in case you continue to stay on ITV, I'm sure audience is going to clap and they will be very happy. But anyway, you had a nice run. You have been a very good host. You bring the good out of everyone. So
thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll second that, Vibhuti Ji. It has been a pleasure, with being with you on ITV. And I happen to know Sudhir Parekh, as probably all of us know. I'm sure he will miss you. And it has been a great journey with you on ITV and otherwise on other things that we work on.
Thank you. Thank you, Krishna Ji.
Vibhuti Ji, it has been a delightful experience, to be on your show and to have you on my show. Equally pleasurable, whichever, side of the table we are, across the table we are. It is certainly a loss for ITV Gold, but all good things come with a finite date. So I'm sure that you will, utilize your brilliance, your potential for greater heights while you're focusing on Jaipur Dialogue USA. And, I'm pretty sure that, your intellectual potential will not cease just because you're not working with ITV Gold. So ITV Gold viewers would probably miss you, but you will have probably thousands and maybe millions of viewers in Jaipur Dialogue USA, where you can work in a much more focused manner, and would love to come back on Jaipur Dialogue USA.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Back on CSA.
Thank you all for being with me and supporting me, and to all the viewers, my personal gratitude to all of you. Have a great weekend. Have a great week ahead, and see you again sometime in some other forum. Thank you, Dr. Sudhir Parikh, for giving me the opportunity, and I'm sure the show will go on. Thank you.